So everything was agreeable, but it was unclear to me, and it still remains unclear to me how that agreement materialized, if it was included in anything with the planning commission. It seemed like it was something that they discussed and then could very easily just be forgotten about, or not saying intentionally left behind, but it could have just not have happened. So I think, being that it's in front of us, wanting to discuss whether or not that was formally discussed or formally agreed upon, and if so, in what way, and if not, can we, include that with our extension today?
Sure. So I guess first we should look to commissioners who may have been on the board, on the commission, to answer with whatever history you have, or Andy. So either of you have recollection?
Yeah, I know both
project.
Sarah and I were on it, and I recall the discussions were on it. I don't recall the formalities.
Agreed.
Of the agreement. I don't know, Steve, you're
No, I'm going, Steve Strikeman, Commissioner of Planning and Economic Development. I'm going to agree with you. The discussions occurred, the transfers haven't happened. That was supposed to occur at a later date, which obviously hasn't happened because the construction, nothing's occurred yet. I'm trying to figure out how to move this forward because I don't remember what the decision was at the time as well.
And I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember the discussion. I think you may have even commented as a member of the public.
I did, yeah.
Wasn't there some type of condition or an agreement from the applicant that there was going to be a follow-up discussion about how the trail would be connected to the property itself?
I know that idea of a condition was discussed, but I have not seen anything on that condition. And so that's what I'm kind of looking for now is that included, now that it's in front of us again, is there that condition? Can we find that condition? If Roger's on the call or even still representing them, which I believe he is, can he speak to that? And if it's not on there, is that something that we can just, is, in your opinion, is this something that we can even discuss now as an extension, as part of the extension?
The common practice and precedent on the past is extensions. And I've advised this consistently, is that unless there's been some type of substantial change to the neighborhood, then the applicant should be entitled, there's a presumption they're entitled to the extension.
Yeah.
You can require them to demonstrate to you that there has been no change to the character of the community or the surrounding circumstances. And I don't know that there has been here, but this is a little bit different. The question is, was there a prior condition? If there was a prior condition and it's not complied with yet, if you granted the extension, it would still be a valid condition that must be applied.
Right. And I'm not intending to make any argument that conditions have changed. My comment is really, was that condition, put into the agreement in the right way? And if it wasn't, can we put it into the extension tonight? Because it was agreeable, it was not something that Roger or the party he was representing seemed to have any issue with. In fact, they seemed, to be totally on board with what we were talking about. But I just would, ideally, it would be formalized and live on, regardless of people's memory, because as we're demonstrating, that's not always the most reliable.
Right. And I think it would be difficult to impose a new condition, but that's not where we are.
Right.
We're in a situation where we don't know if the condition, either there was an agreement by the applicant, which wouldn't require it. If they consented to it, some type of condition isn't required. I would be surprised if it was discussed as a condition and then the board missed it when they approved it. Just much more organized than that. But I think you could grant the extension conditioned upon full compliance of whatever was required or agreed to related to the trailhead, or however we termed it back then. That's perfectly appropriate.
That sounds fine to me.
So are you satisfied?
Yes.
Okay. Um,
Andy, do you think that that should be handled separately, not in block with the One Monument Square approval?
I would pull it off the consent and then do it first once you get through the consent.
Okay.
It's fine with me. We can move that up. Okay, so we'll move the PLPC 2020-0031 out of consent over to new business or old business, doesn't really matter. Okay, and then we said 0108 had members of the public as well, so we'll move that one out. Okay, so that just leaves One Monument Square. Any commissioner discussion needed? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to extend the approval.
I'll make a motion to extend.
Okay, moving to a vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All set on PLPC 2022-0027. If you're here, you're free to go. Thank you very much. All right, and then we'll start with PLPC 2020-0031, the apartment. So let's just get into it and take a motion if you have one.
Yeah, Andy, I don't know if you want to repeat that wording as you did so
I didn't write it
eloquently.
down. Yeah, it would be a motion to grant the extension, conditioned upon compliance with all previous conditions related to the trailhead, and compliance with all agreed to aspects of the trail system that were agreed to by the applicant. So that way, either way, if it was agreed to and consented to, or if it was a condition, either way, it's still effective and enforceable.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so,
I'll second.
okay, moving to a vote. Bill? James?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yeah.
And I also vote yes. Motion passes. Okay, and then PLPC 2022-0108, 391 3rd Street. Do we have the applicant present? Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello again.
Yeah. Lisa Rodriguez with TAP. I reside at 1986 15th Street here in Troy. We prepared the site plan for Waleed Al-Maklafi here. He would like to make a deli in a former barber shop at this address. There are 2 or 3 apartments in the building as well. This is a very small space, maybe 18 by 21 feet. And I'm going to let Waleed tell you about it.
Sure. Hi, Waleed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Waleed. I'm trying to open a store, a deli in South Troy. It's gonna be like Subway, same design. There is a Subway closed down. I bought all the equipment. It's gonna be the same exact thing. Small. I hope I get no approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to commissioners. I think there might be a few questions amongst us. Anything, guys? You
Well,
guys can
I
go
know we
first.
have some concerns from the community, and I see those folks in attendance, so I'll let them voice that. But if you could just maybe give us a more detailed description about how it'll work. I did review your floor plan, and it looks like you have some seating in there. So yeah, just like what the daily operations are gonna kind of look like would be helpful, I think, for everybody.
Sure.
And what will be sold specifically? would be
It's gonna be like a deli meat, boar's head meat, subs, hot, cold, same thing as Subway. Sandwich breakfast too. All warm up, good to go and to eat in. Simple.
Could you clarify in the application, it says related convenience sales, what convenience sales there'd be?
Like snacks, cakes, chips.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see no alcohol. Does that also no
No.
tobacco either, or?
No tobacco, no alcohol, no lotto either. So,
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
sure.
Any other commissioner questions? Okay, I'll open the floor for public comment, if you wouldn't mind. come up one at a time. And then if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Chuck Conroy. I live at 405 3rd Street. I'm only a couple of doors down from this property. You've all seen my written submission, hopefully. I have learned more about the proposal this evening. I learned as much as you did just about 20 minutes ago. The fact that there is no alcohol, there is no tobacco, and there is no lotto on the premises is appealing. But I did want to still come up here and just kind of voice some of my concerns as a South Troy resident, someone who moved to this neighborhood specifically because of how quiet it is. It is separate from some of our sister stores or similar type stores in the area, which bill themselves as delis, bill themselves as convenience stores, and have proven to be very problematic for our community. I have seen, and I got a report from the Troy Police Department that this calendar year, in the general proximity of just 2 of these stores, there were almost 70 police reported incidents. They are not all associated with those properties. They are surrounding. We're very concerned that a business at this location could be a center like that. I do not suggest that the gentleman here who has this proposal will be that, but we are very concerned that will be what moves in. I'm very concerned that we're hearing a nice proposal at this time to kind of get behind, and then as soon as we get in the door, it's going to be different. And as a neighbor, as someone who is putting a lot into this community, I'm a member of the Osgood Neighborhood Group, and we do litter cleanups. You've read all of my comments, all of my concerns regarding litter, crime. We have 5 delicatessen / convenience stores within about a half-mile radius. We are very concerned about this proposal. What I saw and heard from the gentleman, I'm sorry, Waleed, I'm gonna just, if I can use your first name, I apologize for that. Is interesting. I'm still very, very concerned about what this proposal means for our neighborhood. If it doesn't, in fact, end up being what it is. The building itself is quite small, as you've heard, and it is a quiet corner, although it is a busy street. So I would be very concerned about any parking issues or traffic issues that may present from this location if there are numbers of people coming through. I got some of my argument points kind of cut off by the proposal, but we are very concerned. I know I have a neighborhood association member here with me who's also going to kind of come up and talk about some of our issues. And I guess I don't necessarily have a request, but we are very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Sid Fleischer, and I live at 384 2nd Street, which is on that block, but around the corner. And I just have a couple of things that I'd like to. 2 pages.
Sure.
Basically, just
We can share. Is it the same?
yes.
Okay.
That's an image of the building from the front and the side with the approximate dimensions of the space. It's a very small building. You can see that the only way to move in and out of that building is through that front door, which is on 3rd Street. A business like that would probably generate a certain amount of litter or trash. Then to me, it seems like there would be a real problem with where it would be stored. It would have to be stored out in front, it seems. The size of it is only about 360 square feet. I did see the floor plan that Lisa drew up, but it looks to me like you've got seating with like 3 feet of space between the chairs. I mean, if you have people sitting there, they're just going to be bumping into each other. So my concern is that the use really is not appropriate with the size of the building. In addition to that, the fact that that particular block actually the block just north of it, and the block that I live on, which is to the west, are quiet blocks. There are no businesses of that type, within that area. And in a city, it seems to me, from a planning point of view, it's nice to have these kind of quiet spaces. Because when you do look around, there are a number of so-called convenience stores or delis, located, as Chuck said, within a really close proximity. I mean, a block, less than a block, or a block and a little bit more is a Stewart's, which is a major sort of contributor to that type of activity. I mean, they have deli in there. They sell, it's a major convenience store. Sure, everybody knows what a Stewart's is. And it generates a huge amount of litter, which is a problem throughout not only our neighborhood, but throughout a lot of the city. So, I mean, my concern is basically that use is not really appropriate for that particular space or that particular block, that's my primary concern. I mean, I've lived in that neighborhood for quite a few years. And I used to go to the barber shop that was there when I had something that could be worked on by the barber. and that space really is small. And it's difficult for me to really understand how this could work in that space. And I think that it's important to consider the fact that there's a lot of people who live in that block, a lot of owner occupants who have put a lot of effort and a lot of money into working on their buildings and fixing up their buildings, are really, good neighbors, and the type of a neighborhood that I think is a positive situation for the city. I mean, we've worked on our buildings, and we've put a lot of effort and energy into that. We have a very active neighborhood association, the Osgood Neighborhoods, and we try to do the best we can to, sort of make the neighborhood a comfortable place to live. So, I mean, that's basically my concern. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Anyone else here in person? Any members of the public on Zoom? I see one hand up.
Hello, this is Kevin Carpenter. I live about a block away from where this will be. I just wanted to say that we have no objection to this, but we wanted to express one concern, and it's similar to what you've heard, and it's that litter can be an issue around these types of businesses, and we hope that the Planning Commission could require, or the city could provide, adequate trash can and recycling on the street as we have in other areas. And just a comment to the applicant, we just hope that if this business comes in, that the business will be a good neighbor in our neighborhood. But we're very supportive of having businesses local in the neighborhood and not losing storefronts, as we have with so many storefronts that have been turned into apartments, and then they never return to storefronts. And so we keep losing the opportunity for local businesses. So, we're supportive of these local businesses in our neighborhood if they're good neighbors. So that's all we wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else on Zoom here to speak on this proposal? No one else? Okay, go back over to, thank you. Move back, close public comment and go to commissioner comments.
I think it'd be great if we let the applicant respond to some of those concerns directly.
Yeah,
Sure.
or specifically, I would ask a question, taking one of the concerns that was raised regarding outdoor trash storage. Is there any plan for?
I really understand his concern about the neighborhood, about the garbage. The garbage will be, we're gonna have a garbage can inside the store, and we will have those one that you can wheel in. We're gonna try to ask the landlord to put them inside. It's a fence that we can put them there. Nothing, we will clean after ourselves, and we will be a good neighbor if it goes through. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about the trash storage? Because I don't see the fence or the exterior trash storage on the.
There is
plan.
a fence there. The,
You have the exterior photo?
I've seen the exterior photos. Yeah, are you talking about the breezeway between the two buildings?
yeah,
Okay.
is I don't even know if that belongs to him, but anyway, we will get a container from them, like, they will be even caged or whatever. We'll find a place for them inside.
Okay. And so you're gonna be renting the space?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't necessarily ease my concern about the trash,
Sure.
honestly, is that, not knowing if they own that space, if that could be used, and then just the amount of trash that a business would generate. Do you know what your hours that you'll be open? will
It's
be?
gonna be from 6 to 10.
6 to 10?
Yeah.
6 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
Yeah, to
Okay.
10, 9, 9:30. I mean, 10 is good. 6 to 10,
6 to 10.
if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I'm assuming you'll generate a significant amount of trash to the point where it might not fit in a traditional can in the breezeway.
No, they're gonna order 2 more. I'm gonna order a big one. I'll order from, or I can use the city of Troy. They don't do the garbage. They do commercial garbage.
Yeah, I don't think we have commercial pickup,
No,
right?
yeah, I'll do some other garbage. Like, Bob Lake. The Bob Lake Garbage Waste Company. The two, yeah,
Yeah, I'm also interested in where it would be located.
Right. That's because, I mean,
oh, the-
I should say I live in the neighborhood. I'm also very active in the neighborhood association. I don't necessarily share their concerns about having a business in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't live as close as some of the folks who spoke today, but in the comprehensive plan process and the rezoning process, we did hear from a sizable portion of the community that wanted these businesses similar to the last member of the public who spoke. So I think there's merit there, and value. But being that it's a sensitive location, I think trash pickup really needs to be, formalized and thought about in a real way before, they can really coexist properly with the neighboring buildings, neighboring uses.
May I suggest that you give us time to work that out, the details out? He still has to go to zoning to get a parking variance for 3 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So we can come back with a plan for the garbage. We'll figure out I don't believe that gangway belongs to the owner of this building.
Yeah.
I don't know where they put their garbage, if there's a setup in the alley, but that's what I suggest, that you give us a chance to work that out, and
Yeah,
after
that's-
zoning, we'll come back.
Yeah.
We could adjourn this to the January meeting, and then, in that time, you'll have managed to get the required variances from zoning, assuming they approve it. And then, in the meantime, if you can look into whether or not the property owner owns that breezeway, and if not, if you can make an agreement with the property owner of that breezeway for garbage storage, and just add that to the submission.
I think it would also do a lot for favor of the community around you to be willing to put a trash can out front if you're amenable to that. Somewhere as people leave the facility or as they walk by, that you'd be taking care of and giving people a place to put their trash.
I want to respond to that. This is very naive of me, but do building owners do that on city sidewalks?
Sometimes in certain neighborhoods where the city doesn't have as prominent of a trash
Like most
receptacle
locations
infrastructure.
in the
Yeah.
city?
I mean, in our community, like historically, when the trash cans have disappeared, some neighbors step up and put trash cans out. And it's effective, it has to go somewhere. So
And who empties that trash can?
usually the person who puts it out, it's like something they've taken on to help, keep their space cleaner. it's, not ideal urban living, but it has impacts.
When I walk out of Stewart's, I typically find trash cans on the property that I could put trash in and not litter the area. I look
Right,
at it
but that's,
similarly.
and I'm sorry, we're totally digressing from your application, but it's fascinating. But that's on, it's in a parking lot, the environment is different. And so in downtown, like, I have to walk 2 blocks to throw out an apple core. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who
Yeah.
should I be looking at? Steve, probably. I'm like- So.
Rick's walking away.
So it's a real concern, and Chuck and Sid's neighborhood, they're doing the work, but in most neighborhoods, it's not happening. So
Right.
I think it's not a global issue, but it's really, it's a city issue that I think we should keep talking about.
Yeah.
So don't, what I would say is don't feel like we're applying undue responsibility on you for dealing with this trash. It's just, we're taking advantage of an opportunity that I think we should
I mean,
continue to
I'm there, so I'm
address.
part of it, so I will do my best.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been brought up in other cases, when a business goes in, that it's an opportunity for them to put out a trash can. And I think it's something that we can continue to push for. I also think just given the space and looking at the, exterior photos, Sid provided one, and Liz, I know you included one in the application, that there's some excess space in the front of the building. I think that is an opportunity to maybe provide a space for either a trash can or something else, maybe a bench or something that adds to the community. And then when you do come back, I think seeing, is there going to be signage or exterior lighting? Those are all things that, I think would add to the neighborhood friendliness that some of the community members are talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so effectively,
May I make a motion to adjourn until the January meeting?
adjourn that item.
This item
Yes.
until the January meeting.
Are we leaving the public comment period open?
We are.
I closed it.
Okay, great. I'll second.
Okay, moving to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Issue around garbage on the sidewalk. So that should probably, I would exercise some degree of caution through code enforcement's property maintenance code. Garbage is not allowed on a sidewalk. So I would say potentially if they were going to apply for a city receptacle to avoid any conflicts with code enforcement, that might be more of a prudent measure to take in terms of a private, like pickup trash can situation.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, like, in cities where there are there's limited space, could they have some sort of like built out infrastructure, when you're in,
I've seen so here in Troy.
oh yeah,
So,
yeah,
I would think so.
like, like an enclosed.
Yeah,
area.
yeah. Once upon a time, I think that, that was the appropriate way for garbage pickup. So
Well,
there are
Eric,
some areas that are catered.
Yeah. Eric, if you were someone from city staff, wouldn't mind sharing the application for the city receptacle with the applicant, just in case they do want to go that route.
Yeah, I'll have to speak with Latasha.
Straight. Yeah.
All good?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, moving on. I think we will go to I'll just go in the order. So we have PLPC 2022-0105, 400 River Street, applicants BBL.
Evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Make sure that's not too loud. I'm Rob Curto with BBL. I think I joined virtually last month, and I have Jason Dell with Lansing Engineering with me, as well as our building owner, Kevin Joffe. I'll let Jason put up some aerials of what we're proposing now. We did speak with engineering last week, I believe, and Eric. You guys had proposed possibly a planter or
Can I go over there or pull that closer? Because you won't be able to hear me. in the mic. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
the mic-
perfect. That works. You guys had proposed a planter here last meeting. Engineering is saying there might be some future plans here for the federal corridor, Federal Street corridor. So what we'd like to do tonight and look for approval on tonight is to consolidate our parking to 3 spaces with a kind of pull through, because there's already an existing curb cut on River Street and King Street. So that would be our interim proposal here to move forward with the project, the apartments, et cetera. As we explained last meeting, the first floor is going to remain vacant for future use. We don't have any proposed use for that. So we'll be back in front of you once that comes to fruition. I'd like to focus on this first, and then we do have some future proposed. Okay, yep. Is that better? Okay, thank you. Then we do have some future proposed improvements that might tie into the Federal Street corridor project. You guys have any questions regarding our current proposition here? I know you had asked us to come back with some concepts.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for coming back.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, we had staff comments that showed concern over what we had agreed upon, and I think those comments brought up really great points. I think in that line, what's being shown with the 3 parking spaces doesn't necessarily eliminate the concern. And just personally, I have concerns on the pedestrian impact of them having to cross over this driveway and then cross this slip lane and then cross the intersection from both the pedestrian point of view and just like an urban streetscape issue, especially in downtown in the historic districts. So, or is this isn't the historic district, correct? Yeah. So yeah, and I guess my real question then is looking at what's being shown as potential future improvement site aerial.
Thank you.
Is that possible now? What's on your site? Well, obviously not the roundabout, but on your site, is that why do an interim treatment of 3 parking spaces instead of just moving forward with like what we're all looking for in the future?
Yeah, it's functionality. It's enticing to get, right? We need to make this property appealing to new tenants. So we're putting 12 units in. So I think with the existing parking, it is appealing to keep with that. It keeps our costs down currently. And what we avoid right now is we don't know how this transpires. I think we were told by engineering the plan would be the turnaround from River to King gets eliminated in the future.
Yeah.
But that's not the plan right now. So if we go ahead with these improvements, spend our owner's capital to improve it with something in the future and this plan changes, now we're reverting and trying to revert course on something in the future. Hence why keeping the parking's enticing to future tenants. It allows us some loading unloading zone for people moving in and out. I don't see it as a high traffic parking where someone's coming and going all the time. It is going to be for tenants. So if you think you're going to be leaving first thing in the morning and probably arriving at night, I don't see it. It's not like a commercial parking lot that's constant traffic per se.
Do you view the entry exit as one way? So you can only pull in
Yes,
and then out the
Yes.
opposite side?
yes, that's a
I
good
don't know.
point.
Were you clear on that, James?
Yeah, I'm clear on that. I don't think that the improvements that we're looking for on this site, or that I'm looking for, I should say, on this site are required, like contingent on the rest of the roundabout happening. If that project never comes to fruition, the improvements that we're looking for shown by this green space here are still forever improved. It's not something that changes necessarily. It's not, reliant on that slip lane going away. In fact, if that slip lane was gone, I wouldn't be as concerned about this being parking. So yeah, I mean, it'd also be helpful, I think, because Eric, you put the staff report together and I thought there were really great comments in there. And I mean, I know Steve is here, so if there's other things that either of you want to bring up or just articulate it in a different way, I think that might be helpful for the group too.
Yeah, I think that, Steve could probably speak more to these concerns, but ultimately, there's a number of ideas that we put forward they could potentially choose from.
And I think, so the reason we didn't go beyond what's shown on here was because with the changes, obviously the curb cuts would be sealed off on River Street. Things would change and because we're in the preliminary design right now, and we're funding for the actual permanent design in place for the Federal Street study, I see that this project will occur, in the next 3 to 5 years. So we didn't want to have the developer basically going there and changing everything and removing all the parking since we're not quite sure. And I think it was an oversight that we didn't look a little bit further with the design. So we will look further at how the plan occurs and what happens. Can we create new parking there? So I think at this time, it improves the situation. We go from 5 spaces to 3. We don't have people pulling in and backing out onto King, pulling in and backing out onto River. So it's going to be one way in, one way out. I think it's better for pedestrians. Is it perfect? No, but I think just because we will probably tackle this area in a couple of years, we were comfortable with just the minor changes right now. I would probably want to have them remove the striping that, seal over the striping that's there to clearly indicate where those spaces are and remove any spaces so you don't have people tempting to try and put 6 spaces in there or 5 spaces.
I don't know if this is something you can speak to, because there was a back and forth about the planter and some sort of concern on the planter, but as a transportation planner, I don't see the concern on the sight line there.
I think it was just that it was, and Aaron looked at that in one of his last days there, so he had concerns about it. I mean, it was on city property there.
Can't blame it on Aaron.
I love to. I can blame everything on him now. So no, it was on our property, and it was just, kind of a look good thing that was, we didn't feel it, we felt removing more of the parking spaces. I mean, maybe could you landscape it or do something else there, but this was approved in 2004, I think, and that was a recommendation that something go in there, the same thing, and that never occurred. And we felt like for 3 years or 2 years, it wasn't really something we wanted to have them address.
Okay. For the applicant, the red lines here are showing, the driving boundaries, I'm assuming, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, our intention is to stripe and seal coat and restripe this area. The red lines, Jason, you guys had put on there you can speak to that, I guess, as far as what they dictate.
Yes, the red lines on the plan show approximate 9 by 18 parking stalls. So you've got 3 across there. And as indicated, they would clearly denote where the parking stall stops and starts. And as indicated, the existing striping there would be covered over, such leaving just what the proposed stalls will be.
And it's just striping, right?
That's correct. That's not curbing north or south of the parking spaces? No.
And the curb cut there is existing?
Yes, you can see in the aerial photo here, the underlying parking that's there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments? Good. Okay, any members of the public here to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom? All good? Okay. There's no other comments. Take a motion. Anyone wants to make one? Anyone want to make a motion? I will make a motion myself then that we approve PLPC 2022-0105's revised site plan that's been coordinated with the city engineering staff. With the condition, I think that engineering still needs a final review on this relative to future planning of the federal corridor.
I second the motion.
Well, I think we're approving this plan as an interim plan with the expectation that it's going to change in the future, but the plan
Correct.
as it is approved.
Correct. Andy, you
Right,
look
so
like you have a
I
question.
think it would be a condition of the approval that makes clear that this plan is approved on a temporary basis until the reconstruction of the Federal Street corridor. And at that time, the applicant would have to return, or those parking spaces would cease to be approved.
Steve has something.
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Moen here, that I think it should just be, I don't remember what, I don't think, I think it should just be approved right now as is, that there's no further review. I mean,
Okay, you don't need further review.
no, I
Okay.
mean, as long as, yeah. as
That's
long as
fine by
it's
me.
Yeah,
that.
but then what happens when the Federal Street thing? is
Then
gone?
most of that property is city property. I mean, the curb cuts, if we're gonna redo curb cuts, we're gonna redo curb cuts and reconfigure the driveways in and the driveways out. I don't think we're not necessarily going to say you have to remove those 3 spaces and put in the green area.
Oh, well,
I
that's-
mean,
that makes this other page confusing.
Well, I think the other page is sort of telling us.
it's a potential.
Could be.
Right.
Yeah, it's hypothetical
But it's not in
potential,
front of
yes.
us- But it's not in front of us for approval tonight.
Yes.
But without a condition, there's no mechanism that forces the applicant back when that.
And I don't
happens.
think you want to force the applicant back. I mean, at that point, if we do close off the slip lane
Yep.
and we do have a driveway going out, then we would probably reconfigure the curb cuts. We might add in parking on street as well. Again, it hasn't been designed, it hasn't been planned. I think this is just an improvement over what's there right now. And I think it's sufficient.
Steve's comfortable with it. I have no objection to that.
James and I never agree.
I mean, it sounds like to me that it would make sense for, it's never gonna, what I'm concerned about is it will never happen. It'll never get improved in 3 years, 5 years, whatever, once the Federal Street corridor is redesigned, and you'll have this awkward driveway that we would never allow otherwise. It's only, if this project was a new construction project, we would never allow a driveway to be put there. I would say, I would have a big issue with that.
We would probably redesign it with a narrower entrance coming in and then broadening out to 3. I don't
You
know.
wouldn't put 3 spaces there. It wouldn't be, that's not how the space would be used. So
Yeah.
it's being improved now because those are the existing conditions, but with the opportunity to redesign the whole corridor, it sounds like, yes, let them have the 3 parking spaces there, but when the thing gets redesigned, why not have them go on street with those 3 spaces?
I mean, I guess you could at that point.
It's going to be the construction will be very efficient because they'll be doing work right there anyway. To me, I mean, everybody, when this site is talked about, everybody says, "Wow, why is that point so awkward?" And part of that is not only that there's a building missing, but that the space is being used for parking. And so this sounds like a good compromise to allow it for now,
Yeah.
and then when it comes back,
I also think that with the removal of the slip lane, you're going to have greening of that area that maybe it won't be as ugly with 3 parking spaces.
right? But then with the removal of that slip lane, you have this opportunity to do something with the whole space instead of just being confined to, okay, here you don't have, 27 feet of space now to work with. I mean, that's a whole space that could be attractive for tenants to go outside and spend time and interact with their community. But if it doesn't come back and doesn't get changed, it's likely going to be 3 drive-through parking spaces for eternity. And
It likely
sounds-
is, and or they might decide to put a building there and utilize the space better.
yeah, where's the plan that says that? Potential future.
So-
But again, it's not city property. We will improve our property and we're taking back the 3 spaces that are
I
2/3 of
understand, but
which
I'm
are-
not here to review city property. I'm here to review the private proposal. So,
And I mean,
So make a motion then, James.
I mean, my motion is what Andy suggested earlier, that we approve the proposal with the condition that the applicant returns while the Federal Street redesign is complete and the construction is set to happen so that we can revisit the parking design.
Yeah, depending on the scope of the Federal Street redesign, we could just be renewing our previous approval, or we could be approving something different. So
And put another way, that's a temporary approval.
Yeah, and it's not related to, you know, the rest of the site or any other way that the site is being interacted with. It's just the parking.
Okay.
Is that amenable to the applicant?
Well, so once Federal Street happens and it does occur, right? As I said, the 3 spaces is valuable to the building owner like anyone else, right? That's an amenity to provide to your tenants for loading, unloading, parking, et cetera, moving in and out and whatnot. We would like to be, we are neighborly, right? And our building owner is neighborly. We would like to be part of the future improvements there. And whatever happens, we would like to tie that space, our property or his property, into that improvement to beautify the neighborhood. It's only behooves the neighborhood and his property per se. Losing the 3 spaces, we would be amenable to maybe if the city, part of the plan, added more off-street parking. If King Street became a 1-lane road, it does add parallel parking on both sides. We're amenable to that. And then maybe we have a loading, unloading zone or something along those lines that you guys provide in front of our building that's striped and or labeled. So if we have a first floor commercial tenant, they can have trucks and deliveries. The tenants can move in and out, and there's much more ample street parking for them. That's where we would say, if you guys are doing that moving forward, then maybe our parking spots are less valuable. I don't know. Kevin,
Yeah.
if you have any
Possible.
further to add.
I think
you know,
the point here is that
yeah, you can
the
speak,
3
yep.
spaces are approved unless and until Federal Street happens. When Federal Street happens,
It'd be reviewed again.
right?
Yeah.
Not that they're necessarily coming out or not being
They're not-
moved along river.
And we get the need. I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities when the street is redesigned. You know, there's even the street's very wide now, and if it was narrowed to 1 lane, there's opportunities to diagonal parking and stuff like that. So, you know, we're not the whole point of having this come back if it's redesigned or reconstructed is that we would have the opportunity to discuss it together rather than just saying what's there now is great forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so just to bring you up to speed, my name's Kevin, but I am, if the new plan happens, I love the idea of connecting the front of the building, using it as, maybe it's patio space, maybe it's a courtyard, maybe it's green space for my tenants, maybe, I'm all for that, but to give up, I mean, I'm already giving up 3 spots there that I thought I had going into this thing. So now I'm down to 3 spots. To say that I have to come back and give up my spots at some point, I don't know that I'm ready to do that.
I don't think that's what anybody said.
No.
You have to come back so that whether those 3 spots stay or get changed would be something that would be discussed.
Yeah.
Oh,
We don't know
It's
what
it's
Federal-
not a decision now. It is an agreement that we'll revisit it when we see what the city does in terms of the
Okay, I
overall
mean,
street plan.
If that's the way that is, I don't mind that quite as much. It just sounded to me like taking the opportunity, was the wording of it, to reconfigure my green space or lack of it at this point, but I don't think that would be completely fair, but I am open to it. I love the idea of having the green space all the way out. I was hoping you guys would keep me involved in whatever is going on there, move some parking down this side and add that side like one of these has, I think.
Yeah.
Right there. Or some extra space. I know those wouldn't be my spaces, but it is extra spaces. And if I have that green space and the tenant that comes into that ground level can take advantage of patio or something that we can have a nice area out front there, I'm all for it. One thing I wouldn't like to see is this area turning into an area with benches and things where people are gonna end up sleeping and hanging out. It happens there on that corner already. I'm trying to combat that myself before any of this stuff got going. So, you know, as long as some of those things are kept in mind, I would love to see that space look like one big green space coming out on the whole peninsula. So
Yeah, it sounds like we're, agreeing what our ideas around this are. And, like I said, just being transparent, if this was a new proposal, the driveway is not something that I would support, it's something that would be a big issue. And I know it, it's a bummer to lose those other 3 spaces, and that's not something that we talked about last month. I think a loading zone sounds great. All these things make a lot of sense. So it's just saying that we would be able to come
yeah,
back.
and
and
I
talk
do
about
feel
it.
like at some point, part of that may be just more of a loading zone than parking. Like
Yeah,
that's just some space that, whether it's a delivery truck or something coming in for that ground space tenant, or a move in or move out of a tenant for upstairs. It looks like on one of those two, there's this King Street when it comes down to one lane here. So that would be in front of one of my curb cuts too. And I'm not opposed to that if this becomes green space and everything, as long as maybe there would be an area there for that building that could be blocked off as constant unloading zone, being that it's not spots that we're taking off the grid. You know what I mean? So as long as all those things are taken into consideration, I'm fine with coming back and you guys keep me involved with talking about what that's gonna look like.
right.
I mean, I want it to look beautiful too. And
Great.
Right now it doesn't, so, and, the parking, maybe those 3 spots stay somehow the way we have the new thing. There's still a little patio around the side of them or something, or I don't know. If we can make that work where the traffic flow works for it, then I'm all for that. So I'm open to anything and everything regarding that space. I just don't want things pulled away from me before we get the chance to say, hang on, we needed that. We need a pull-off area. We need
Sure.
an unloading zone, or we need 3 parking spaces. I may need 3 parking spaces there pretty bad,
Yeah.
based on the area and what's there now.
I think
And
we're
so-
good.
The last thing I'll say too is just like my concern too is we could agree on this right now, and then if ownership changes, you sell it or something like that, maybe the next owner isn't amenable. But if we put it into the plan now, or into the approval now rather,
Yes,
they're-
that's what I'm worried about too.
they're
Like,
coming back and
being
we can talk
amenable
about
to
it.
that is putting me at a disadvantage. If I do go to sell it, oh, wait, then you gotta go in front of the planning board to change anything about this existing parking lot. So, I mean, there's 2 existing curb cuts there that I would be losing. I'm not sure how that comes about, or, what our talks are to make that happen, or you just say, nope, you can't have access to your property. I don't know how that works yet, but I mean, I'm sure we'll have some of those conversations as that comes together. But I mean, I'm all for talking about it at some point. I just don't want to pigeonhole myself into saying, yeah, when we go to talk about this, I may lose those spots. And if you're saying that I won't, and I can always have those spots in some form, then I'm okay with.
I don't think that's what anyone said either. They didn't give you a promise one way
Yeah,
or the other. They
it-
said that they promised, that the idea is there'd be a promise to consider all options at that time.
Yeah, I think the conversation that we're having now, this is not something that we're going to change right now. So it's something that we're going to revisit, and it sounds like we'll be able to come to an agreement then.
I have a question. So yours is not the only property that will be affected by this plan.
Yeah.
Every property adjacent to that circle would be affected. It's increasing the radius of that curbing at every corner, right? Which means that if that plan goes forward, every property is essentially forfeiting some of their land.
Not the way I see
It,
Well, the property across the street is city owned. The property on the, I guess this is the northwest corner, the northeast corner wouldn't be losing land. This curve changes on every corner. Right, but that
Right?
corner is city owned, and then the corner below wouldn't lose land. It actually looks like sidewalk would be added.
And here.
Yeah, I
So
think that's city,
if
I think
it's all
that's,
city, then, okay.
I mean,
have
the
no
parking
problem.
lot is not city owned, but the adjacent green space is city owned. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know.
If it all
that-
belongs to the city, then my point is moot. And yours
anything
is
that
the
belongs to
only
the city-
private property.
Yeah.
That belongs to the city, belongs to the city. I guess.
Correct. I
Right.
guess
Yeah.
that's the premise, is if
Yeah.
this plan comes back and the intent is where that takes away our curb cut, right? Takes it away
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
River
You
Street.
can't get to it.
Correct, and
anyway,
it takes it
so-
away there. So
You'd be
we,
forced back to the table anyway, right?
Yeah,
Right.
well, a
Yes.
spiteful, a
Yes.
spiteful landowner would just
So-
leave
That's
asphalt
okay.
there, you know, or store trash, but you know what I mean?
correct,
It's like-
well, as a smart business owner, you're not going to leave that asphalt, right?
Right.
I mean, so if you got, that's my opinion. I guess that's why he's concerned. Our concern is this contingency, we have to come back and things do change. It's a private development. There's contingencies on the table. It just makes it complicated for us, for as a building owner to do anything further with the property.
And if it's a
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
where you are looking to take that curb cut back or something, then you are gonna force me back there anyway. And we're gonna talk about it, right? So.
If I may.
Sure.
I think it's important to note that these are not final plans.
Yeah.
They're preliminary, and it's just a concept at this point.
Yeah.
But also at the same time to the applicant, this may alter the nature of the curb cuts on that location. This is also, you know, in the future, an opportunity for you to be able to inject your, you know, needs for the building and such. So basically, this being a conditional approval to have these parking areas. I mean, ultimately, this could change if you don't even have an entryway from River Street altogether. So
Correct.
I think that, you know, your points are valid, but I just want to make clear that these are not final approved plans.
Understood. I think it's just comes down to verbiage, right, on this, on the conditional approval in the parking. As long as the verbiage is amenable, then I think Kevin's okay with that too. So I think we're all on the same page, like James said. It's just a matter of how's the wording presented, right? And that he doesn't have to come back if Federal Street doesn't progress in any,
Exactly.
none of us in this room has control over that in that timeline.
And I'm not holding my
No.
breath.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I think we would love to see that. I think anyone knowing Troy and knowing it's an entry point would love to see this come to fruition. So hopefully it does in the near future. I think it
And I can
improves
tell you,
everything.
if a tenant comes into that and wants that parking space, as a patio or green space right off the bat, and it's something marketable for me to be able to use, and then obviously I'm gonna definitely say I would rather have it space that I'm getting paid for as a patio, green space and beautify the area than parking that I'm not.
Right.
So I think we're all on the same page. I really want the front of that building. You know, it's hard to change a building like that because can't because of anything historically. So it's tough to put new colors on it or do anything like that to beautify it or update it or anything. And that front area, I would love it to do something to help that out because it is just there right now. And I'm all for trying to make coming over that bridge, that thing be a focal.
All right, so James, you were in the process of making, did you actually?
Oh, I thought I made the motion.
You did. You did, okay.
But we didn't get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, do you guys need it repeated though?
Yeah, what is the?
Yeah.
I made a motion to approve the proposal with the condition that the parking exterior site plan, including the parking, would be revisited if the Federal Street redesign project is moving forward prior to the construction of the Federal Street corridor, the new Federal Street corridor. And the reason for that is so that you guys have an opportunity to team up with that improvement, and so that they don't go through, do all the curbing, leave your property alone, and then it costs more money later on to do yours. So that makes sense to me.
Does that work for your purposes, Andy?
It's a little vague in terms of timing. I think you want to give specific direction to the applicant of exactly what will occur and at what point in time. And if for any reason the approval you're granting would become invalid, when and why, and he must return here. And the way it's worded now, it's kind of,
Yeah,
it's a little bit.
the vagary is on the ifs the
Yeah.
Federal Street program happens.
Well, I'm not so worried about the approval being having an expiration date. I want the approval, again, there's no other issue besides these curb cuts and the parking. So I guess my question is, can the condition have an expiration? Whereas if the city doesn't move forward with this concept in 5 years, can the condition go away and the project be approved as presented?
Yes, but what if they do go forward within 5 years? And why 5 years instead of 6? But assuming the project does go forward, are you saying that the approval for the 3 parking spaces are no longer valid and he must come back?
No,
Or-
I'm saying within the applicant's being reasonable in this case. And it's the city's responsibility to, I would say, to move forward with this concept and not leave their project with this condition hanging over it, in perpetuity. So I think it's the city's responsibility. They've identified a concept and they're looking to move forward. And it's great that they have a landowner, adjacent landowner that's willing to work with them. So can we take the burden away from the landowner in 5 years?
You could, you could say, unless, right, it's approved for 5 years. And they must come back in 5 years regardless what happens, or the time condition can lapse if there is no Federal Street reconstruction project within 5 years.
I would say the latter. Yeah.
But what about the latter specifically triggers their appearance? That's part of what I,
It doesn't. If Federal Street reconstruction doesn't happen in 5 years, then there's no time condition on the approval of parking spaces.
sorry, I mean, if it does happen, what is the specific event about the federal street
It's the
program
final
that would-
construction plans of the redesign being, I would say that the redesign construction plans being finalized by the city, I would say would be the time that they would come back.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me approach it from a different angle.
It's a good
What would be your position if the final design for the reconstruction project keeps the 2 curb cuts in place?
I mean, I would be making comments on, I don't know that those comments would be appropriate from the plan as my position as a planning commissioner, but I would have comments on that for sure.
Okay, so then what if the condition is the overall change of use is approved? No one's worried about, but related to the 3 parking spaces, the 3 parking spaces are approved unless the 2 existing curb cuts are removed as part of the Federal Street reconstruction project, at which time you don't have to say they lapse because they're going to lose their ability to park there if the curb cuts are coming in.
And I would say one or the other, and we could not make it even tied to Federal Street specifically, just if within the next 5 years, I'm assuming Federal Street would do it, but if they
Right.
just decide to redo River independently,
It's true.
right? If those curb cuts go away, then
Right. Your approval for the parking spaces would lapse if the curb cuts go away by any redesign.
Sure.
And if they don't go away, and that puts on the applicant to have the conversation with the city to save his curb cuts if he wants to save his park.
Yeah.
And the public to comment on their opinion.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so what was it? No. So the approval, it's approved, but specifically related to the 3 parking spaces. The 3 parking spaces, how should I say it? Hold on. They're approved unless the city removes the curb cuts as part of any reconstruction project.
So moved.
second.
Moving to a vote. Bill, James,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. The motion passes.
So if nothing happens with the curb cut.
So, sure, whatever, the 3 parking spaces are approved as shown. And they will remain approved unless the city adopts any type of redesign that eliminates the existing curb cuts. If the existing curb cuts are eliminated, then the approval for the parking spaces are eliminated.
Understood. So in essence, we're being hypothetical. That would become public knowledge. There'd have to be a public forum
I think you
in
get
that
notices.
design.
Yeah.
You'd be notified at
absolutely.
some point, and we could come here on our behalf and
say, save my
and
curb cuts,
debate.
I need
Yes,
it for
I
my
want to
park.
save my curb, yes.
And it likely won't be through the, it's very unlikely it'd be through the planning commission. You know, it's probably gonna be through a different type of public meeting.
It'd be some other form, but there would be a public forum.
Yes.
But
for the-
at the same time, you wouldn't have the ability to say, you can't remove my curb cut because that's how I access my parking.
Understood, but we would be able to speak on how beneficial and valuable that parking is to us. And
That was my,
Yeah.
so you're saying that the way this is approved, I'm kind of granting access to possibly lose those curb cuts.
What I'm saying, no, what I'm saying is the parking spaces, which this board has control over, doesn't get you all the curb cuts, are approved unless the curb cuts that allow access to those parking spaces are removed by some type of redesign. If the curb cuts are taken away, then the right to park there is taken.
And in order for that redesign to happen, somebody would be coming to me anyway and
Yeah.
saying.
God, I
"You're
would
about
hope
to
so.
lose your
Yeah.
curb cuts, or
Yeah.
you're about to lose access to the property."
Yes,
And at that point, I would be fighting that, right?
Correct.
Because
Or-
existing
or
curb cuts,
teaming up,
existing-
yeah.
correct, correct.
or coming up with solutions to,
Absolutely,
Right.
that's fine. I mean,
Or the
as long as
demand,
they don't just come to me and say they're gone.
Well,
Yeah.
and no one's out to get you, you know, I think we want to see, the city wants to see you succeed. It wants to see, you know, businesses in this building and it, as a rental succeed. So it's not like the big bad wolf is coming to blow your parking
and,
spaces
and-
away.
and it's a very fair, it's a very fair and reasonable argument to state that if you're gonna take my curb cuts that allow my parking, you have to give me parallel parking adjacent to the, you know,
yeah.
why take a curb cut if I'm not gonna get parallel spots as a result?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Whether it's gonna go down to one lane and.
And if it never happens, your 3 spots are there in
Yeah.
perpetuity.
Wait, I don't know, guys. What do you think? Maybe it should be 2 parts.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, last item on old business is PLPC 2022-0078 for the Troy Atrium, 04th Street. Let's see if we remember how to avoid the text box in the middle of the screen. Share the right application. Not the desktop, I think was the solution.
Cheers. Actually, this was.
Sorry for being so long-winded tonight. I
All
saw the
good.
agenda. I was like, this is gonna be nice. Simple, but.
Impossible.
Yep.
Who's that? Oh. Oh, I didn't see him. Bear with us on Zoom. We're just getting the presentation loaded up into the presentation laptop.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're good. Good evening again. My name is
evening.
Brian. My name is Brian Ostrow with Environmental Design Partnership. I'm here with Ken Syvertson from Syverson Gusso Architects, and Denton Bryce, the applicant, is in the room with us tonight as well. Pleased to represent an update to a project you've seen several months in a row now, which is the redevelopment of the south end of the atrium. So As you know, we've kind of gone back and forth on the architecture, which we're going to show you tonight, and tried to incorporate as many of the comments and changes that you want. The comments from the previous meetings were, or the last meeting, I should say, was make the brick on the building there much darker. We had talked about the Albany brick, add a more pronounced water table accent band on building one, which building one, I mean, it's all one building, but for discussion purposes, building one is the 3rd Street elevation between the stone and the fiber cement. We talked about shielding some of the parking on the northeast corner of the open area where the parking is going to be, and adding planters there, which we did. There was discussion about going to overhead doors in storefront along Broadway, which we actually have incorporated in this change. Actually, not just along Broadway, but also it wraps around 3rd and 4th Street. So that comment was added and changed accordingly. There was a kind of a discussion back and forth about making the middle band of the brick on the building 2, which would be the Broadway elevation, gray fiber, which was added. That's just above the awnings that were previously shown there. Adding bike racks on the site plan, we've actually added a bike storage room to the building, and that's in the architectural floor plans that you have. There was a comment to revisit the design of the tower element on 4th Street. There was a discussion that it was maybe a little bit too pronounced, so that has been toned down a little bit in the revised elevations. Discussion about the exterior of the Troy atrium wall that will have to go in as part of this to separate the existing city property from this building, and doing some kind of a canvas or color wall on that. And so the applicant has discussed this with Farmers Market, and they have a grant that the applicant is also going to supplement to do a mural on that. And I think they're going to reach out to the Arts Center as well for input and collaboration on that. And lastly, there was a comment about pedestrian-friendly curbs along Broadway. The applicant, in discussions with the farmers market, felt that the current configuration works well as is for what they're planning to do, and they didn't want to modify that. So most of the comments were incorporated. And so this is an updated rendering, which Ken can certainly go into the specifics on any of the materials or colors, but this is a rendering looking from Broadway and 3rd, the corner of Broadway and 3rd, towards that corner of the building. You'll notice the outdoor amenity space on the rooftop, as we've previously talked about. I know that was one of the things you wanted incorporated into this. This is the same view, just with some more activation along Broadway and what, you know, we hope to have as an active area with, you know, stands and activation with the farmers market. This is a rendering that Ken did from the corner of Broadway and 4th, looking down kind of towards the north along 4th, and you get the image along Broadway as well. And so just some subtle changes that were made since the last meeting. I just wanted to highlight in red here, we did add the bike storage to the building. We added the roll-up doors typical of all those locations along Broadway, and it wraps around 3rd and 4th as well. So we no longer have any of those gates. This has not really changed much. This is the floor plates for the apartments in the 2nd story up. This is the floor plan for the upper story that shows the outdoor amenity space. And then there was discussion, as I mentioned, we provided an updated landscaping plan that shows the tree plantings that are proposed, as well as the planters along the northeast corner to block the parking that we kind of went back and forth with and had a lot of discussions on previously. This is an updated elevation view of Broadway. You'll notice, and it's kind of subtle, but again, above the awnings, that banding was changed. The brick was darkened in this elevation view to discuss what the comments that we had received before. And again, Ken can go over any specific on the architecture that you want. This is an updated elevation of Third Street. You'll notice again, we incorporate the the overhead doors here. That banding is subtle, but it did change slightly there. And then the Fourth Street elevation, which I know has kind of been a contention and discussion back and forth to try to make it, screen the vehicles that are in there, which, has been done in this elevation, and to kind of liven that section up a little bit. And again, you'll see the less pronounced tower there in the upper part of the drawing. And then this is an elevation which would only be if you're inside in the open parking area looking to the south from the north. Again, this is just that updated elevation. And again, go back and talk about any specific elements you want. But, and then this is an updated aerial that just shows kind of the building massing in relation to the other buildings within this portion of downtown Troy. And with that, we'll kind of send it back to you, but I believe we've tried to incorporate all of the comments to date.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
You guys made great progress. I'll just turn it over first and foremost to the commissioners, see if you guys have remarks, comments. Who wants to go first?
Well, my first comment is every time I see it, it looks better. So I like that to start with. And I know that there were a number of communications you had with the city. I'd be interested in hearing what the status is with that. No?
So maybe Steve can speak better to that.
I need to bring him out before he's ready.
So as I stated all along with the applicant, want to move, this is a project that really requires city approval as well because it impacts the atrium, and that because of the complexity of this, we would move both projects in parallel, but in the end, the city council is going to need to sign off on any of the changes. And so I sent a letter basically to the developer this week after speaking with the administration. So we have there's questions basically that they need to answer regarding how the atrium functions, and the fact that I guess we really haven't seen any details yet on the atrium, how that's going to be shored up. So we're going to have to review that as well. So we're waiting for some responses to those questions now at this time. But I mean, I think the renderings are great. I think, the next step now is, pending whatever your decision is here, is to take it to the city council. So I think if you could conceptually say, yes, this looks good or not, that's good. And then we could bring it to back to the city and continue moving it forward there. So I mean, I'm saying conceptually, I don't think you really can approve it at this point without the city being on board.
Are you weighing in or?
Somewhat related. Not specifically to the atrium, but at the more general level. It's my understanding that the city currently doesn't have a city engineer.
Correct.
So has any aspect of this project been reviewed in terms of its engineering?
No, not yet. No, it has not.
Okay.
I mean, it has not been by, the site plans have been reviewed by Aaron. That's correct.
Okay, but you're
Nothing, I mean, nothing's been reviewed as far as the atrium. I mean, Aaron would have probably sent the whole
Like
project.
structural details, for
Yeah.
instance, haven't been reviewed.
and
Or-
I
or
think that's what I'm
water
getting at,
use.
because my understanding is the buildings are currently connected, they're being disconnected,
Yep,
which has engineering impacts, and we don't have a city engineer.
right. Yeah, that's gonna have to be reviewed externally.
And the reason I raise it is because you are lead agency under seeker. And I don't think you can take any action until you determine there are no potential adverse environmental impacts. And I don't think you can get to that place without having some type of engineering review and sign off that it's doable.
I would agree.
So
I
what,
guess my question on that would be, what would be the significant, what would be the potential significant adverse environmental impact associated?
The building could fall down? I mean, we don't know. You're disconnecting a building from an existing building. We don't know how the existing building is gonna remain.
Understood, but it's just like building construction that has to get reviewed by the city at some point anyways, right? That's not normally part of the city.
Well, it's gonna have to be reviewed. Part of seeker, I don't know, I can't answer that, but it would, yeah, I mean, it does have to be reviewed. There's gonna have to be engineering review of that before we're gonna sign off on it.
Yeah, the building, when you submit the detailed architectural engineering plans to the actual building, department, they issue a building permit, right?
They would issue the building permit, but that's, I mean, no, it's not, but but again, I mean, I'm saying the city council still has to sign off on this proposal, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm saying from the secret standpoint, I guess I don't understand.
What I'm saying from a secret standpoint is if you have two large buildings that are connected and the plan that is before the planning commission as lead agency is to disconnect them, and we don't have the ability to access the opinion of a city engineer, I don't think the lead agency can determine there are no negative impacts without some type of engineering input. Like, it would be against my recommendation to make a secret determination when you're disconnecting buildings and you have no, even a memo from an engineer saying that we can work through any issues that arise.
There's also water, to add additional examples, water, wastewater, there's parking, transportation, transpo studies, anything like that. Those are other things.
And I don't know that any
engineering-
of that's been reviewed. I just
That's my
recently
point.
learned there is no city engineer.
well, we're moving forward with a third-party review, I'm assuming, right?
I mean, I think we should move forward with a third-party review. I was waiting to get to, do we have an approved plan? But, and again, is the city council on board? And then move forward.
So the
with that.
process would be the planning commission would conceptually agree that the plan is approvable. It would go to a third-party review and then come back so that we could weigh in on the seeker. Is that how it's understood?
I guess, I mean, I would have the third-party review go to the city council. Deal with any issues that we have out there. I mean, the city council may have issues with how things are done and want to send it back. Even might want to send it back for something, based on the wall of the atrium. So it could always come back.
Well, I would hope that the city council would be trusting the third-party review to make that call and not, none of them are engineers, right? So.
No, absolutely not. No, they would on the stability of it, yes. On the aesthetics of it, no. Or, I don't know. They've looked at it conceptually, but there's a wall there. How do they access, they haven't really reviewed it other than to look at the plans, and we haven't had any discussion on it yet until I knew what the final determination was here.
So I threw in my best guess for the process. Andy, do you want to just clarify what you think the
Yeah,
process should be?
I think, and I apologize for getting into the weeds on this. I just think in the absence of any type of engineering review, I don't think you're in a position to take final action on the site plan this evening. But what I think you can do, because clearly the engineering review isn't your purview, is any aspects of the site plan or the building or the architecture that remain outstanding for you, work through them with the applicant, and an informal poll of the board this evening on where you are, if you were in a position to approve it, whether or not you would approve what you're seeing, I think would be helpful for them to know that they are hitting their marks in terms of the site plan and the rendering and the architectural design. I just don't think you can take any type of final action as lead agency until you issue the neg deck, and I think you need some type of engineering confirmation.
Andy, could you conjecture if there were a city engineer tomorrow or a third-party engineering reviewer tomorrow? What's the chronological order? What's the sequence of events that that'll take place from this point forward?
Either a city engineer or a third-party engineering review coordinates with the applicant, reviews the engineered plans, and sends a memo to you as the lead agency under seeker, confirming that from an engineering perspective, the plan is acceptable, at which time you as the lead agency can determine that there are no adverse environmental impacts because it's been reviewed by those experts. At
Okay.
that point, then, once you issue a negative declaration on seeker, you are free to make a decision on the application at any time.
And we can make a decision on the application regardless of whether city council has looked at it yet or not.
Correct. The holdup for you is the being secret lead agency. That you need, I think you need confirmation from a PE that the site plan is workable, even at the most minimal level from a PE, and we don't have that. So you need the engineering memo that confirms the site plan works. You are not, you don't have to wait for the city council. Clearly, any approval you granted, they'd still have to obtain any approvals from the city council that are necessary.
We can make that an explicit condition.
Correct, correct. My concern is, as secret lead agency, no one's looked at the engineering and said there's enough water, there's enough sewer, you can disconnect these buildings and it's shored up properly. That's I think the missing component for you as secret lead agency.
So essentially, tonight, it seems like we should get out any other last issues that we have, if there are any, regarding the site plan, so that we're in a position where we feel confident we would approve that plan in its current form.
And articulate that. So if you assume we come back to the next meeting and you have an engineering memo that says engineering's all good on this design, you're then in a position to act. If you think there's anything outstanding that you still need to work through with the applicant, now's the time to do it. And I think informally, let them know exactly where you are if you were in a position to act, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to
Yeah,
me.
thank you, Andy.
So I guess I'm gonna let Brian speak. I don't have any argument. I mean, my only concern again is the city, if the city comes in and says, we don't like the way this happens, we want this to happen, there might be something that comes back to the planning commission. So I don't think the planning, regardless of seeker, I don't think the planning commission is ready to act because the plan could change again based on city council.
But that could also happen if we made a conditional approval and sent it to city council. They could say.
No one can hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
That's better, thank you.
That could also happen if we approve the site plan conditionally on city council approval. We could send it over to them. They could say, we don't like it, and we're not going to approve whatever the city needs to approve, and then it ends up getting bounced back to us anyway.
Yeah, and just for clarification, I mean, I understand the wall issue, that's a structural issue, I'm not a structural engineer. That's gonna get worked out with the structural engineer working on the building itself.
Again, the public cannot hear you.
I understand the wall issue that we're talking about specifically that the city council wants to review, and I don't necessarily have any issues with that. I'm not a structural engineer. But as for the water, sewer, the other things you brought up, Andy, that's been in for over a year with the city. I know Aaron's looked at that. We've given narratives and engineering reports for stormwater, sanitary, all of that. So, I mean, that's been into the city for well over a year on multiple occasions whenever there was an iteration change.
And I don't doubt you.
Okay.
I'm sure that's the case. I just don't think you've seen that in a memo. It may have been reviewed and signed off on months ago. It just hasn't reached here as the lead agency, and they have the obligation to check
Sure.
all those boxes.
So let's go for low hanging fruit. Do we start with at least giving you some feedback on, let's start with appearance, facade, and then we can work towards any other outstanding questions we have. I know I will have some questions on the wall that divides it, the foundation, what you're doing, and basement stuff, but I guess I'll turn it over. Bill, do you want to?
Excuse me, I just want to, forgive me, has the public
I was
shared
gonna
their thoughts yet?
administratively, right, I think you do have a public hearing tonight, right?
Yes.
Do, well, okay.
I think we should.
Public comment then? All right, members of the public, if you guys want to come up and one at a time, name and address. Anyone here in person to speak? Nope. Okay, on Zoom, if we could have Eric unmute people one at a time.
I'd like to chime in if I could.
Barb?
This is Barb. This is Barb. Could I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Hi, Barb Nelson, 37 Bell Avenue. Been watching this project along with all, so many people for so many years. I think the point that if engineering had any issue with the site plan, the siting of this building in terms of its impacts on water and utilities, that those would have been brought to the forefront already. And yeah, I don't see where lack of a city engineer should hold up this project and no others. The whole point of the concept of whether or not this building will cause damage to the other building, that's all building permit review. That the engineer's site plan review, it doesn't, there's no amount of detail here to allow an engineer to make that claim. No, that all comes through in the building permit. So yeah, I just wanted to state that I believe it's the planning staff's responsibility to obtain comments, and that if there were any issues to be brought forth, that they should be here at the meeting, or the planning review isn't ready. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Other members of the public care to comment? All right. So with that, we will close the public comment and move to commissioner comments. All right, go for it. Anyone?
Anybody want to go first? Go first. I have 3 comments. The first is on signage. I see that you've added, I believe this is a new sign, right? The 30, is that 309 Broadway? Can't quite see it from here. 300. Oh,
Yeah.
was it? Personally, I don't think that looks appropriate in the downtown. I think it's stands out as something that most, or I don't know if there are any other buildings have that sort of marking on it. I think just a smaller sign, maybe closer to an entranceway or something like that, would be more appropriate for downtown. And I'm assuming because it is in the historic district and you don't know exactly who the tenants will be, that signage will have to get reviewed at another time later on. But for now, I would say if that sign was removed or reduced and put into a more historical context, that would be better. The second comment I have is on the bike parking. I see that you've added it to the site plan, which is great. I'm just curious, it looks like it's 135 square feet. So what is that, about 9 spaces?
We're gonna, probably like
16.
inside.
Yeah, I think from looking at it, it looks like it'll fit about maybe 11. I'm no expert in bike parking, but I've tried to fit a lot of bikes in small spaces in my day. How many tenants are you expecting to have? 100 tenants. And how many parking spaces do you have here?
78.
Yeah, 78. Yeah. So my ask is to increase the number of bike parking, which I know does increase the footprint that it has. I think, at least doubling it so that you could fit 24 bicycles comfortably and safely would make sense. Just so that, almost that would be almost a quarter of your tenants being able to have dedicated bike parking. I guess I have 2 more comments. The next comment is just on trash. Adjacent to that, I'm looking at that. This is 120 square feet. And then what I think are dumpsters are shown over here. It's next to the numbers 15 and 17, labeling the number of parking spaces. Those are 2 dumpsters.
Yes.
Can you just talk us through how tenants will use the trash and just what the process is for that?
The building has a trash chute, so you take your trash to the chute, drop it in, never see it again.
Well, they never see it again, but I want to make sure we never see it again.
Right, well then maintenance will take it from the trash room, or maybe compacted, can afford a compactor and bring it out to the trash dumpsters
Okay, and then dumpster pickup will happen, what, like?
regularly.
Okay. Great. I don't care what days. I'm just, I'm looking at the 120 square foot trash room and thinking about the 100 residents that are gonna throw out.
Maybe
trash.
several times a week. It all depends on, right, how fast we fill it up.
Okay, great. My last comment is on the, what was said to be pedestrian friendly curbing. So I just wanted to, I know we talked a little bit about streetscape infrastructure.
Yep.
And I don't know exactly what was discussed with the farmer's market about pedestrian friendly curbing. But you know, my concerns aren't alleviated by the farmer's market's preferences on pedestrian infrastructure. So yeah, just looking for again, streetscape infrastructure that decreases vehicle speeds, that discourages high vehicle speeds, like curb extensions that would be done at the time of.
No,
while
I
you guys
understand
were
what you're
moving
looking for,
curbs.
and we
Yeah.
talked with the applicant about it, and he did not want to do that. They like the configuration as it currently is. I don't think there was a concern on their end that there's traffic going from Third to Broadway poses a necessary safety issue there, but I did convey that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the highest concerning area is on 4th Street, I would say, because the vehicle speeds are well documented of being quite high. And, you know, we've heard from other landowners and tenants in that vicinity, and just keeping in mind that we're now attracting higher levels of traffic, not only pedestrian traffic, but also vehicle traffic too.
Hi, I'm Denton Bryce. I own the building. We actually want to close the road permanently to work with the farmer's market, be like a bazaar kind of thing. The ultimate goal is to close the road permanently.
Okay.
If that would,
Which road?
Broadway, if that would go along with what you're saying.
No, I mean, honestly, it doesn't address the current day concerns, right? I mean, this is
Right.
similarly how we were discussing earlier in the meeting, right? As these projects come in front of us, there's an opportunity to address concerns that are there. And then additionally, with the traffic increases that the new atrium will bring, or the new, what is the name? The new project will bring. I know it's not being called the atrium anymore. Well, yeah, Troy Atrium, right? Not only people walking, but people driving, and just knowing that conflicts can increase. I think this is the opportunity, while you guys are going to be, you know, repaving sidewalk and potentially moving curb, to make pedestrian improvements so that, you know, this idea that Broadway will be closed down is an exciting one, but it's not a plan that's in front of us now. And so I'd prefer to see it addressed with the project rather than.
So you're concerned about what? The vehicles coming down 4th?
So detail, I mean, to go into detail on the traffic safety concerns, it'd be conflicts between drivers and pedestrians, drivers and cyclists, and drivers and drivers, by the curb radii that exists there and the increased pedestrian and driving traffic. So by, you know, constructing something like a curb extension, or sometimes called a bump out, you would reduce that turning radii. So vehicles turning would have to take that turn more slowly. And then vehicles that are passing through the area, whether or not they're turning onto Broadway or continuing straight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if Broadway's closed, then I'm trying to understand, under that hypothetical, what the concern would be, because there wouldn't be a turning movement there.
Right. But there are turning movements now, and Broadway, there is no plan to close Broadway. So pedestrians do experience a safer condition when that road is closed, because there is no concerning turning movement. But by putting in a curb extension or a bump out, you would reduce that conflict, or the chances of there being a dangerous conflict, by having a smaller turning radius.
I think we would rather close the road than do something like that.
I mean, I don't, I don't want to weigh in on my opinion on closing the road because it's not a plan that's in front of us. I don't think the idea of closing the road at some point in the future is a good reason not to put in safer traffic infrastructure in now, if that makes sense. You understand my point?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm just trying to, I mean, we have crosswalks, there's, like I said, we've talked to the applicant about this. He's tried to incorporate as many of the comments as you can with the
Yeah.
budget that he has available. This was not one that he was really interested in.
Okay.
Where do you see that bump out going?
Well, it would be the corners of Broadway and Third on I guess it's the northeast corner there, which is, adjacent to the site. It's basically because the site is so large and they're moving curb and they're repaving sidewalk now, that the areas that they're touching, they could improve on. So it'd be the northeast corner of Broadway and Third, and it'd be the northwest corner of Broadway and Fourth, with Fourth being the most concerning, the most dangerous intersection to cross now. Thinking that there's going to, again, I don't mean to be so redundant, but
Can I ask
people
a
are gonna
question?
be
Because
walking
on
around.
those two corners, nobody's turning. Fourth is one way north, Broadway is one way west. So any bump outs would have to be on the south side of the street, which is not property they control, not on the north side of the north.
they wouldn't have to be. It would still serve as a way to reduce the crossing distance and discourage high vehicle speeds. I mean, I get what you're saying, that a bump out on the south side of that intersection or the near side of that intersection would be more impactful. And if the applicant wanted to do that instead of the north side, which would be much more expensive since they're not touching curb on that side, that would be amazing, but that's not what.
And we're
talking
not
about.
really planning to impact curb, just so you know. We're really just assuming that sidewalk, the concrete sidewalk in that area is going to get beat up from construction. And that's why that is shown as new sidewalk.
So no
But
curb is going to be.
I don't move. I'm not unless it's damaged during construction. There was no plan to really move curb. We don't own that land. We were just going to replace the concrete sidewalks because we figured they would be damaged during construction to some aspect. And quite frankly, it'll look nice.
Yeah, and some of them are
Yeah.
due for replacement anyway.
Yeah, but that's city-owned property. We don't control that. I mean, our property line stops right at that sidewalk.
And to Steve's
Yeah, and-
point, the vehicles aren't turning in that direction where those on the north side would be.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand the movements at play here. I mean,
Yeah, that's City Park too, Steve, isn't it? That section?
Yeah, it's that first. There's the sidewalk, and then for everybody at home, there's the sidewalk, and then there's another 30 feet at City Park, and then there's the building.
Yeah.
okay. No, none of them, I don't think any of them can hear you, but
There's also the budget concern. The
Yeah.
budget is super tight and to spend money on that would make it make sense.
yeah, understood.
Okay. Other comments?
That's it.
Bill? Anthony? Sarah?
No, thank you for all the facade changes.
I
didn't think we were gonna like the being done, but we did it and then like, oh my God, it looks good.
I do like the way the building's looking. I guess if I was being picky, the only part that still sticks out to me as kind of a sore thumb is along Broadway, the gray, I think it's what are these? I'm looking for the call out. The large format fiber cement panels, just kind of along that top, but I'm not asking for anything to be done. Yeah, this top band to me still sticks out. Okay. And then my questions were more so related to the wall of the atrium. That if we can go to one of the views that shows that from maybe the parking lot looking in from Fourth. I think there's that.
Yeah, it's only the aerial you're gonna see that.
There's an isometric view from the parking lot.
Yeah, we didn't, it's not in my.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was the one that was silver looking, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So that silver wall, I think we talked about it a bit briefly, but last meeting.
Yep.
It's not a freestanding wall, correct? It's not its own self-isolated freestanding wall. You're essentially opening up the building and bolting on panels to the existing steel structure to enclose that. Okay. So this is where kind of the engineering review really comes into play in terms of approving it from a site plan standpoint of whether or not the structure as proposed in this site plan is capable of supporting
So-
that envelope design.
Yeah, we have a structural engineer on board who's going to do details of that. We're going to talk to them tomorrow.
Mhm.
We'll submit those to the city. If they want to review them, they can. I don't think you'll find any city engineer that's going to say or put in writing that it's an approved thing because now they just accepted liability, right? So the liability on it working, it's all on us.
Excuse me, I think it's similar to the.
Sarah, please speak up.
Get closer to the mic.
Thank you. I think it's similar to the storage facility project just across the street that utilized some foundation wall from the church, I believe, that was demolished. So we didn't, as the planning commission, didn't approve in any way the reuse of that foundation wall. I don't believe that the city engineer endorsed the reutilization of that foundation wall. It was engineered as part of that proposal and then granted a building permit. And I think that this is similar on a much larger scale, but it is a comparable situation.
I guess I'm not suggesting that the planning commission would be approving the use of the other building structure to do that. It's that an engineering review or recommendation that it has been, what has been developed or packaged doesn't pose that risk of impact. It's not that we are specifically, as the commission, getting down to the structural approval level. It is that we are looking for the engineering approval to be recommended as in place for it. Whereas the example project you just gave, it sounds like it came with that recommendation that an engineer put forth to the planning board for their consideration.
I don't believe so.
That's all part of the building permit process.
Right.
Hmm.
We asked the question, they explained what they're doing so that we could understand the site plan. And then it was out of our hands.
I do have a secondary question related to this wall, which is what happens below grade in the basement level?
Right, we're going to create a full foundation wall and do a lot line adjustment so that, because right now the structure is actually shared between the two properties. It's a center line of the wall, which it should never have been in the first place, right? We're living with something that was done a long time ago. So we're going to create a new foundation wall, entire length of the building, it's about 11 feet, 12 feet deep. And then we're going to do a lot line adjustment, if that works, to put that on your property.
So, I mean, there are impacts there that we should be considering as well, you know, an excavation or the work required to install that foundation is not something that we've talked about prior on this application. It's not something that we've considered from a site plan perspective, nor an engineer review perspective.
Yeah, we're actually not doing excavation work, right? We're going to be infilling it,
You're going to be infilling what?
our side of the basement.
Your side will be what, flow filled or just embankment?
fill.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I guess good on the questions with the wall, unless anyone else has any. Good. All right. No other architectural comments? Anything?
None.
Okay. So motion wise, back to the hard stuff.
I just think a part of this project is this this wall that's going to be built on the atrium property, and there's going to be a lot line that's moved afterwards. It seems like, and I know in discussing it with the developer, it's going to be built on property, and then the lot line is going to occur afterwards. But it seems to me that that is part of the project, so that should be at least described here, that lot line adjustment. It's shown on the site plan, so everybody understands that it's going to move 2 feet. So I don't know if that's a 12 inches, 1 foot. So the property line is going to move 1 foot. So just so that everybody understands that. And I don't know if that means that's a subdivision review or it's just really just a lot line adjustment. So I just want to make that clear that that's what's going to happen. And so then the wall is going to be built on top of the basement wall, right? It's going to be one. Great. Okay. So that's, I just want to make that clear because I don't know if people understood that because I didn't really understand that before, that the lot line was going to move.
4 of 14.
Yeah. And Steve, I know you just, that, to clarify, that's part of what the city needs to approve, correct? That lot line adjustment?
Well, yes, because the city would have to accept the property.
Right.
The city would have to approve the design, ensure that, you know, how is this building being conditioned? That's, I think we're kind of unsure on a lot of these things. So that's, we've asked the developer to provide that information to us. But yeah, that is something that the city would have to approve all those things. The type of facade, the look of the facade, and the acceptance of the property.
Okay, so again, Andy, you'll have to walk us through the seeker actions that need to happen.
Yeah, and let me make my position very clear. In my opinion, you don't have sufficient information in the record of this proceeding to act upon seeker at this time. You, as lead agency, are going to have to make a determination of significance, either a negative declaration or a positive declaration requiring environmental impact statement. I've seen nothing that would lead me to believe that a positive deck or environmental impact statement would be required in this instance. But at the same time, it's an information issue. There isn't sufficient information in front of you as the lead agency where I believe you can make a negative declaration this evening. Now, it is entirely possible that that information does exist, that it has been reviewed, it has been signed off on, but none of us have seen that. As we sit here, none of us know whether or not there's sufficient water and sewer capacity and the hookups are available. We just don't know. That review may have been done months ago, but it's not in front of you as the lead agency, and it needs to get in front of you and be a part of the record, so you have a reasonable basis in the record when you make your secret determination. That's my concern. And it has nothing to do with the elements of the site plan or the architecture or the renderings or the changes they've made. I just don't think you're in a position, I don't think you have a record that puts you in a position where you can make the neg deck under seeker for such a large scale prominent project.
Can we just get a little bit of clarification on what then we do need to have, what would be sufficient for you to recommend that we can move forward with seeker?
The applicant has submitted a full environmental assessment form. In the full environmental assessment form, there is part 1 that they fill out, and then there are the questions that you answer in part 2. In order to answer those questions, you need somebody with expertise to review part 1 and provide the information to you that the information in part 1 is accurate and acceptable, and that the plans match what is in the part 1. That gives you then the ability to figure out to fill out part 2 and then make a determination, which is part 3. I just, again, my concern is that the record doesn't have the information that would give me the ability to defend a neg deck. I'm not saying the information doesn't exist. It's just not in our record at this juncture. And that's the concern.
It's in the record. It's just maybe it hasn't been officially reviewed or commented on by city staff.
Correct,
But
but
we've submitted narratives and detailed studies.
right, but all that stuff doesn't make it to these folks. And so these folks need to hear from the people it gets to, their opinions.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, we submit 10 copies.
But I'm gonna go a step further and say, we're not sure we know what the final site plan is because the city council still has to look at this and say, yes, we're good with that. No, we want the wall another 2 feet further away. The city council could come in at anything with this and, they need to adopt this. So to me, whether you have seeker approval tonight or not, doesn't matter because I don't know if you can approve this without having, again, I always said, these are two parallel things moving down.
When is this going to the city council?
I'm gonna be discussing it with them at a January planning meeting. I'm not sure the date yet.
So what if for tonight's purposes, I mean, I tend to agree with Andy that I feel like I do not have enough information to make a decision for seeker purposes. Maybe other commissioners feel differently. But what if we were to make a referral to the city council to say that we feel like the applicant has addressed our concerns as far as the site plan? We're satisfied with it, short of a formal approval, because for seeker purposes, we're not in a position to do that. But if they are willing to move forward with their approval process, that keeps the thing moving forward. So we're not just spinning our wheels.
And I think that would help me with, I think that would be a great thing to do. It's they've satisfied everything we're concerned with now.
But what do we do to close the loop on having all the information required in the record? Whether it's comment or review on what's been submitted or not, in order to take action on seeker.
Either staff would have to, compile that and provide the memorandums to you of their review, the internal review, or I don't know if they're utilizing a third-party designated engineer to review the materials and provide the recommendation to you. I think you need somebody with a PE behind their name to send a memo saying, I reviewed this, this is all workable, and you can proceed with the site plan. I would leave that to the city to determine whether or not, or you to determine whether or not you want an independent outside review due to the lack of, internal review.
What are the commissioners' thoughts? Do we want city staff? Do we need an outside firm? How do we handle it?
I mean, we wouldn't be in this position given without having a PE on staff who had just left, right? I mean, even if Aaron was still here today, he could probably answer some of these questions on the spot and give us an answer. And Aaron had not voiced any other concerns about the site plan in prior meetings, which
I presume a coordinated review is on, right?
Correct.
which makes doesn't make our decision easier right now. But.
Well, we know it. I mean, Anthony, you'd like to see a little bit more. Is there something specific you'd like to request for engineering review?
I think I just share Andy's concern that I'm not confident that I have enough information to say that there will not be a potential impact of separating the buildings. Right. I know that Aaron has been involved in the process, reviewed all the submissions so far. I would just want to know that the concern has been addressed. So that's my specific concern.
That's my concern as well. I am structural background.
So is that a third-party review then that we're suggesting?
If I can interject, I think kind of the goal I was hoping you wanted to see would be we would issue a conditional approval so that the city council agrees to accept it. You would issue a
Could you go to the mic? Sorry, just so the public.
You issue a conditional approval, then the city council will accept it. They will review it. We'll prepare a drawing that shows the structural reinforcing. It will be a stamped drawing by a structural engineer. We'll work with the city council on the exterior design of the facade. Then the city council can act on it in January. With your conditional approval, we would return at your next planning board meeting if the city council approved it for your final approval, at which time you should have all of the paperwork from Aaron Vera's review if you did it a year ago when it was submitted. I think that's, if you boiled it down, I think that's the process.
The difficulty with that is under the secret regulations, you can't take any official action until secret is complete. So a variation of that would be back to the idea of the informal recommendation to the city council. Hey, folks, we really like this design. We like everything the applicant's done to work with us. They've addressed all our concerns. And we would approve this if we were in a position to do so.
Yeah, I think that essentially is getting everything you're suggesting, because if your plan can't, normally a conditional approval would not require coming back here at all. So if you're going to come back on the agenda at some point in the future anyway, we can do it all at one time if all of those boxes are checked.
That sounds good.
And I'm gonna say, I mean, I know that the city council is gonna want third-party engineering review of the wall. So I know that's gonna be a condition.
Yeah, so then we'd have that time that we come back.
But not just the wall, correct?
They're gonna want, well, how the building is, no, because when you're removing a whole building from a side of a building, the wall's not just gonna hold it up now anymore. Yes, the whole review of that structure.
And the infrastructure that's needed for this project.
She means not just structural concerns.
Water, sewer.
So, I mean, we'll see what Aaron's done, but if
So
it's not there, yes, it would need to be third-party review.
So if Aaron doesn't have notes that explicitly say everything is a-okay and staff can just do what they do, I don't know, but present that to us. Then the city either needs to hire a city engineer immediately to review it, or the third party
It's gonna be the third
has to
party.
do it.
Yeah.
So there you go, it's third party. So have them, I would suggest that we furnish that third party with all of the notes that Aaron may have to accelerate their review of the whole project, not just the structural question. Does that make sense? Maybe it's obvious.
Yeah,
but-
that sounds good.
And is there anything required of the planning commission to arrange for the third-party engineering review?
I think it's on the record that you want it and we will make it happen.
So it's not an action we need to take or anything.
No, I mean, you could formalize it with a resolution, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
You seem to be in consensus. The commissioner has heard you loud and clear. I would only add that, you asked that the third-party engineer be retained quickly and, asked to conduct a review quickly, so we're not holding up the applicant any further.
Sure. Makes sense to me. You guys following?
I think that if you find in your files that Aaron Vera actually approved the section 1 of the environmental assessment form, that you won't need that. And I don't think that you need the engineer to review the structural drawings, because they are not going to approve structural drawings for an atrium. Take that liability. So if you find in Aaron Vera's files that it's approved, that's a moot point.
And I don't think you're gonna find it in his files, the approval of the part one. I don't think that's ever happened. I'm sure that's never happened. So I will reach out to him. But I'm sure that the part one's never been signed.
And if it was, great, just get it to us so it's in our record.
Yeah.
But we still need an action to get over to the city council for their review.
I think a recommend, or
Sure. So who, you guys want to help me word that recommendation?
Actually, right, it's going to tie into our financing also, so we can't wait 30 days for that.
We need conditional approval in writing for our financing.
We can't.
I understand.
Yeah, we can't as of this meeting, because we haven't made our secret declaration.
So all we can do is make a recommendation to the city council.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You want to go for it?
Go ahead.
I'll do it if nobody else.
So I'll move that we recommend this to the city council, that we feel the site plan is in an appropriate state, that we would be in favor of approving it if it meets all of the city's requirements and if it meets the
Third-party
third-party
engineering.
engineering review.
Second that. If that was a motion.
It is a motion.
Okay, moving to a vote. Bill said aye. James?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes. So recommendation goes to city council. City council puts their conditions on, does their review, comes back to us with engineering review. We can take seeker action, then we can take site plan action.
If we find Aaron Vera had files and approval, would we have a special meeting within the next week perhaps? Maybe 3 weeks for the approval?
I'm open. I'll always make myself available.
Yes.
I would add if you can get some type of third-party review quicker than the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
necessarily be Aaron's notes, but if you can get that record sustained, but either way, have a special meeting.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
January 2nd?
I think
Make
the
a
third is the
motion
first day.
to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, I don't know if we ever do ad hoc agenda items. I have reviewed the samples for the Troy Housing Authority project. They are in perfect alignment with what they presented to us, and I would accept them. I don't know if that needs to go on record.
I believe it was delegated to a subcommittee for you to review, and you're reporting back that they were acceptable.
They're acceptable, yes.
So then this board passed a resolution accepting the recommendation of the subcommittee that the materials are acceptable
I move.
for
we-
the,
Second.
what's the name of that project?
Troy Housing Authority.
Troy Housing Authority.
I make a motion for that resolution.
Do we need a motion?
Sure, yeah, accepting
Okay.
the recommendation of the subcommittee.
James had a motion. Bill, do you want? Okay, moving to a vote. Bill? James?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Passes. Okay, and then I will take a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second.
And moving to a vote, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.